how often are you having to update this plan?
So I tell my clients, honestly, I want you to be thinking about your plan at least once a year. And tax time is a great trigger. It's a mandatory task we all have to complete, occurs at the same time every year. You're already thinking about your financial circumstance. Your estate plan should be part of that. And whether that's your personal or your business, you should be looking at all of it. Does this still fit? Does it make sense? Have we had any major changes, whether we've added in our business a partner, a service, something else that we need to address that maybe wasn't addressed before.
Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando Leduc, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast. Back with another one. Spaghetti on the Wall. Rachel Allums in the house. What is up?
Hey, thanks for having me, Armando. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. You know, you get to live in paradise, which is awesome, San Diego.
That's a fact.
That's just a great place to be. Right now, I'm in New Orleans, and the humidity is high.
A little steamy.
It is hot. Have you been to New Orleans in August?
I have not. I've heard tell of it. I've been in Atlanta in August, which I think is a nearby neighbor. But yeah, we're pretty spoiled here, and we're okay with it.
It is terrible. I know people are like, are you going to be talking about the weather? But when the weather is so oppressive, like when the weather is so bad at this time, like New Orleans is a great place to live from about the end of October to May. And even May is hot. I would say April for me.
There you
right? Go. And then like May, June, July, August, September, and then the beginnings of October. Oof. Oof. But we're not here to talk about
summer and summer light, and then we kind of roll with that from there.
That's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. All right. So we're rolling into what we're talking about today, which is estate planning.
Sure.
A lot of entrepreneurs listen to this show, okay, and I am really on a mission to tell people that they've got to get their businesses ready for exit.
Absolutely.
And at the beginning of the journey, it doesn't necessarily need to be like the entire focus, but if you are somewhat focused on exit strategy, what does that look like? How are you planning? Who are the A players that are involved in your business? How do you find mentors and coaches? And, because I think, all of the attorneys that we work with are coaches and they're mentors, right? Like they're the voices of reason. They're the authority in the field, and they're the ones that are guiding us through this process.
Sure.
Had the privilege of going to the Exit Planning Institute a few months ago. And that's when I really started understanding this, this mindset of exit planning. What does that mean? How do you, how can you exit a business, or even like the M&A strategy of picking up businesses in order to sell them,
Mm-hmm.
and then that becoming a business. So, which is what I'm sort of starting to delve into a little bit. So I'm glad you're here, because part of the estate planning is, the entrepreneurial exit strategy and how you're presenting that to these entrepreneurs and how are you guiding them through that process. So talk about how you started.
Sure.
And kind of give me some backstory, and then we'll kind of get into the tips and tricks of how we can use your services in order to get us set up.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And I agree with you absolutely. Beginning with the end in mind is critical when you're an entrepreneur. And it's definitely not the focus that we all are aimed at when we're beginning a business, right? We've got our beautiful seed. We're looking to germinate and grow that business. And we've got all these ideas for what it's going to become, but we never think too much about, how does that business flow if we're extracted from it whether that's intentionally or unintentionally, right? And that's where estate planning is often the focus is what happens if if we die, right? Which
Yeah.
unfortunately, this, spoiler alert, that's the end of the story for all of us. There's no getting out of it. So it's a matter of how do we plan. So my backstory is that I actually entered the legal field as a baby at the age of 18 in a legal secretary capacity. I became a paralegal over a number of years, and I was in that role for about 20 years, working with an attorney who did both family law and estate planning. So you want to talk about the ending of things and being either prepared for that, or how do you pick up the pieces when it's thrust upon you. That was really my whole world for about 20 years in a support role, still guiding clients and really just learning as boots on the ground, what does this look like and what are the real pain points that we need to address. And in 2015, I decided I wanted to level up my career. I really wanted to open my own firm and become an attorney. So I actually followed a really unique licensing path that, around the country will probably be surprising. As far as I know, California is the only, if not one of the only, bars that allow someone to pursue a law license without going to law school. So I sort of, yeah, see your face right now, right? The path is under the bar. They have a special program where you can either study under a judge's chamber or under a law firm, and essentially it's a path. I liken it to homeschool for law school. You create a study plan approved by the bar. You have to have a mentor attorney who's willing to shepherd you through that process and teach you. It's really an on-the-job training. It's almost like the journeyman and apprenticeships of old that have kind of been lost today, where we're really learning through the experience of doing as well as the book learning. So it was a 4-year process, 18 to 30 hours a week on top of my normal job and being a mom. We really hit the ground running, my mentor and I, and just kind of ground through it. And I had that wonderful background of having been in a law firm for 20 years and serving clients and understanding how the law affects real people. So it really gave me that bolster into moving into that kind of unique education. After 4 years and passing through a multitude of pre-exams and different criteria that the bar sets forth, I was able to sit for the bar exam in California in 2019, became a licensed attorney, my first go out, which I'm probably the most proud of because we're a notoriously challenging bar here.
Wow.
First time win is not always that common. So I was fortunate in the end of 2019 to be licensed, and having the background of having run a firm, from the other side, I was able to, unlike many attorneys who come out of law school not really knowing how to begin, where to start, what to do, I had a really good idea of not only how to run a firm that I thought I could be proud of, but the kind of clients I wanted to serve and the kind of impact I thought I could make. Yeah, part of that might have been I was quite a bit more mature, a little older than those coming right into the business world out of law school. So I had seen a few things. I'd been a parent, been through several iterations of the firm I was in. So it was a really good groundwork for me. So again, unique background. And I think that also helped me because I can relate to my clients, I think, in a unique way in different challenges that they experience. Many of the entrepreneurs that I work with, these are second acts, right? These are folks who had a full career and decided to either do something differently or do like I did and level up in a different way to really pursue that passion. So it does give me that unique background and perspective. And I've lived a little bit of life. So, I've been through some of those personal journeys myself, losing loved ones, either, knowing this is coming or unplanned, seeing businesses thrive and fail. So I've really had that life experience that helped me get started. And that's why my passion stayed with estate planning. It really allowed me to serve a variety of people, right? It's something everybody needs. As I said, none of us have a surprise ending to the story. It's how we all get there. So it's really about how can we still take what we know is going to be a common end and make sure that we address all the unique challenges that each individual has to help them have a plan for that.
What's the problems that entrepreneurs that you're seeing entrepreneurs have that you can help solve?
Yeah, I think the problem really lies with we get a little myopic in our business and we segregate it a bit from our day to day life and our families, right? We really treat it as two very distinct entities. We have our family and maybe we have our family estate plan and we're thinking about our home and the items that we own. And then we have our business and we've got our business plan to, again, grow and move forward in developing that business. But we often miss the part of that overlap that is so apparent in everyday life, right? We're constantly making adjustments for our life and our business to work together, but we're missing that part, as I said at the beginning. What if we have to be plucked out of that business? And what if that's unexpected? How is that going to impact our family members and our loved ones? What if this is an extremely unique business or a business that requires specific licensure and your surviving spouse or your child or your loved one that you want to leave this to doesn't qualify to own that business? Is that something we've thought about, right? That's unique to lawyers. A non-lawyer currently in almost every state cannot own a law firm. So my surviving spouse can't just jump in and keep this business going. Even this is a significant part of our income. It has to end, right? Almost immediately because he doesn't have the ability to do that. So how have we thought through that, especially as a solopreneur, right? This is an even more unique set. I don't have a partner that's going to be able to jump in, take over, and have a graceful exit for that spouse. How is there going to be income coming to that person? Are they able to sell that business entity, right? So these are really important decisions, as you mentioned, Armando, at the top. We got to think about how we're exiting, and whether we've planned that well is going to have an extremely profound effect on the people we're leaving behind.
So I talked to, we deal with a lot of attorneys. Talk to me
Mhm.
about that problem that attorneys are having because they can't just sell the business to anybody. They have to sell it to an attorney or get rolled up into another law firm.
Yeah.
So what have you done?
Yeah.
And, and give me some guidance in that aspect.
And that's a great question. So, and I'm only 4 years into my own practice here, and I'm actually still working on, really developing out that strategy. And that's the other piece, right? It takes time. So you have a couple of options. I mean, one, and this is what a lot of attorneys actually tend to do anyway, is sort of they retire, they roll up the carpet, they lock the door, and off they go, right? And the firm dies with them. Currently my firm is Allums Law. My name is on the door. If Allums is no longer here, is there still a firm, right? So there are some that just sort of say, well, if I'm not here, the firm goes away. Well, that also has some inherent problems because in states like California, we have rules and our rules of professional responsibility that require us to have a plan for someone who is licensed to come in and at least get our clients supported and directed to other attorneys to finish their business, right? You can imagine if there's litigation or I'm in the middle of a probate for a family and I died or I became permanently incapacitated, where do they go? How does someone access my confidential files, right? And it's not only legal businesses that are in this predicament, but especially for lawyers because of the confidentiality. The same would apply to physicians who are in independent practice, right? I have a client who is a psychologist. How do we make sure we have someone with legal authority to step in with that same confidential, credential to take on and redistribute those files? Really, the biggest piece there, Armando, is I need to figure out choosing someone that I trust, right? That can do that for me. In California, we have something called a practice administrator. And this is actually something that the California Bar instituted to do exactly this, to give really like a special power of attorney, a special legal access to another attorney who would be able to step in and deal with your practice, deal with those confidential matters, and help get those clients, pushed out to new attorneys and make sure that their matters will continue in a way that doesn't harm and hinder them. So it just comes back to every time we have to think deeply about this, we have to put some practices in place. So I'm working through with another attorney, another female entrepreneur who has a similar business mindset. That's a key as well, right? If you've built up a reputation for your firm and there is a certain way that you serve clients based on your vision, you need to make sure that if you're choosing someone that's going to take on those clients, right, there's a similar path. They're not going to be happy. they're not going to be served well either. So it really comes back to, have we not only thought this through, but have we put the documentation in place place to empower this successor in whatever way that looks to take over. And to speak to whether the firm, what happens with that surviving spouse, again, that's going to be really dependent on how your firm runs. If you're a solo or maybe a small partnership, or maybe you have a few attorneys on staff as a solopreneur, it's really important that in that business package where you've got your business plan, you've got your bylaws, you've got all of your corporate documents, that you have a plan for what will happen with these employees, what will happen with the business. If I have that practice administrator who can sell that business, how do those proceeds get to my loved ones? That's again going to have to really be adjacent to your personal estate plan. And this is where I say these really cannot be disparate, separate plans that we have. They really have to overlap. How does one support the other to make sure that ultimately whatever your goals are going to be accomplished?
I mean, that makes sense. We just picked up, I just picked up a financial advisor, and, you can talk about the personal finances, but when you're an entrepreneur, it's like those things are together. Yeah. Whatever happens in your business is also going to affect your personal, your personal finances.
For sure.
How are you finding the successor? How are you finding these people that you want to, team up with and go, you're the people?
It's a great question. And I think that's honestly probably one of the toughest things, and that's one of the tough things we find in estate planning generally, whether it's personal or professional planning, is who is it that I trust? Who is it that I can count on? Who is it that I think will be there and have some longevity themselves to carry out the plan that I have? For me, it's really about that personal networking, right? Really building up, especially as a solopreneur, really building up a group of trusted individuals, putting yourself out there within the community that you work. So if I'm an estate planning attorney, I'm really making sure I'm invested in our local, estate planning section of the bar. I'm making sure I'm out there meeting people who are in my area, attending some of those events, and really trying to cultivate those relationships. Ultimately, that's where it's at. And the onus is on us as the business owner to make sure that that happens. Just as if we're choosing a guardian for our children, right? Our children have no say. They are relying on us to make sure that happens, that if we've disappeared from their lives, we know there's someone to pick up the pieces. We have to actively pursue that and keep that relationship going. And it's the same with your business. I've often referred to my business as my baby, which I've been scolded a few times for referring to it as a baby, because babies need a lot of work and a lot of attention, right? But that's really what it needs, at least at the inception. And so it really is about building up those networks, whether you're joining a coaching program like I belong to with the Lawyerist team, or you're, again, using your local bar association or affinity bars, and you're going to participate and really develop relationships. That's really the key. Again, finding someone who shares similar visions, similar values, as well as that similar practice area, who could make it a really seamless transition for your clients.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so as you're going through the thought process of estate planning, how often are you having to update this plan?
It's a great question, and I get that question on the daily. So I tell my clients, honestly, I want you to be thinking about your plan at least once a year. And tax time is a great trigger. It's a mandatory task we all have to complete, occurs at the same time every year. You're already thinking about your financial circumstance. Your estate plan should be part of that. And whether that's your personal or your business, you should be looking at all of it. Does this still fit? Does it make sense? Have we had any major changes? Whether we've added in our business a partner, a service, something else that we need to address that maybe wasn't addressed before. But honestly, usually depending on the business or the family's, status, every 3 to 5 years is probably a really good time where we're going to look at, do we need an overhaul, and does this still align with our goals and our vision that we have?
That's a good point. 3 to 5 years. Yeah. And so I know you deal with business owners, but you're dealing with the general public too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, primarily individuals, families, retirees. We're doing mostly the personal estate planning side. It's simply that in personal estate plans, people own businesses. They've got their, certain investments in their future tied up with how they want to, proceed with their business entities. So it's an overlap. And I think it gets missed a lot. I know that there's times where I'll look at, personal estate plans that are coming to me for an update that I didn't draft initially. And we start asking questions about, what are you doing for work? What kind of interests do you have? What investments or unusual things? Or, do you have intellectual property? Do you have some ideas out there that are valuable? And no one's ever asked them these questions before. There really has been a little segregation, or maybe they address it very, high level at how does my business, fall under my trust or under my will to make sure if I die, it goes where I want it to go. So there may be a little of that. But there's very little discussion about, well, how will that work out at the time that you become incapacitated? Do we have a plan in place, especially if you're a solo? How do we have somebody that is already ready to jump in at a moment's notice? And then if you pass away, how do we ensure that that all gets taken care of to make sure that your clients are served, your family is provided for, whatever your plan is? So I think it really is that, although we don't specifically come out and say we're serving estate plans for business owners, we're just serving regular folks, and they happen to own businesses as well. So it's just having that full conversation, as you mentioned, dealing with a financial planner. When you sit down with that planner, they're not just talking to you about what assets do you have and how do we want to grow them, right? They're asking you about your future goals. They're asking you about your retirement plans. They're asking you about your safety nets, things that are important to you, right? Where do you want to make an impact? These are the same things we need to know in both our estate and business planning as well, because all of it is intertwined, right? We really can't separate them from each other.
Are you working in like hand in hand with financial advisors and CPAs, and how does that
Absolutely.
all work? Do you guys all get on a call
Absolutely.
together or what?
Yeah, it depends on the client, right? So some clients are really comfortable just managing these and keeping us in the loop as far as what the other advisors are doing. Others like us to be in a group sort of setting, right? Whether we may jump on a group call. There's a lot of times where I'm on, a Zoom with a client and a CPA or a financial advisor, where we're all working out a plan together that makes sense so that we ensure that all the goals are met, and that we can do that within whatever, tax strategies or planning strategies are happening. Especially when we're dealing with after death, then that's a lot of contact that I'm going to have with those wealth advisors and with those CPAs as we're winding down an estate, for example, to really ensure that we've, covered everything the beneficiaries need. And at times it's challenging, right? Because our clients don't always speak the language, right? I always joke that, lawyers are really just paid translators to translate legalese to, plain English. That's our main job. Now, also, that could be said for the financial advisors and CPAs. And the three of us speak the same language. And I'll often say to a client, would it be helpful if I just talk directly with your advisor and get them what they need? And that, yes, please, thank you. And then let me know how it turns out and what I
Yeah.
need to do. So it does take a little stress off when we can have a coordinated planning team, especially as our clients age, right? They really want to know that they have got a group working together for their best interest. So we try to make sure wherever we can, we do employ that.
Look, I can't stress enough, having A players around you
Mm,
is just transformational. We just
yeah.
in our business finally rounded out our C-suite, with
Excellent.
just hired a COO,
Yeah.
our CFO's in place, all of these, all of the A players that need to be there. And you can already tell immediately, like everything just like comes up,
Yeah.
and it's all like the staff,
Yeah.
they're all like, okay, somebody's going to be measuring and there's analytics now, and there's going to be a little bit more organization, and
Yeah.
when it comes to like, estate planning and, and making sure that like the finances are in order, and being aware of things that you don't even know you should be aware of. That's the thing that I think I've learned the most from working with attorneys, is that there's so much stuff that we don't know that will just can screw us up, and
Absolutely.
having A players around you just helps mitigate that risk,
Yeah.
keeps you knowledgeable, keeps you moving forward, and keeps you in a place where you can really, actually relax.
Yeah, and I think that what's important there that you touched on is you don't know what you don't know, right? And especially when you're an entrepreneur, you've got an idea, you've got a dream, you have something you're really skilled and passionate about, but that doesn't make you necessarily a skilled business person or suddenly that you understand the law or the tax code any better. You have an idea of how you want this to go and how you want to serve your clients or the public, and that's fantastic. And that's where you should be in that visionary role, right? And making
Yeah.
sure that you put these integrators around you who can pick up those pieces. Right people, right seats is so important when you're developing your team to make sure there is somebody that's thinking about that one item that's not on your task list, that's not even on your radar, right? So I totally agree with you. Super important. And that's tricky when you are a small or solo, right? If you just have a tiny team or you don't have a team, it's you, just me, myself, and I. That's how I started on my org chart. It was my name in every seat, right? And so as you develop that, it's you need to rely on them, those outside advisors like your attorney, your financial, your CPA. And I think there's an intimidation factor that happens there. Of course, there's cost factor that happens there. Folks are worried, oh gosh, if I call an attorney and I hire somebody and I'm paying hundreds of dollars an hour and I'm going to keep getting hit with this and I don't know. I'm going to try to wing it, right? Or I'm going to use Google Esquire and try to figure it out myself.
Oof.
And I have lots of clients. It's just as dangerous as Dr. Google, right? When you're trying to self-diagnose. Now, is there a lot of really helpful information out there where you can begin to educate yourself? Absolutely. We put it out all of the time, right? The goal is to support our clients and give them some tools, some language, but it doesn't get at the heart of your specifics. I'll have clients come in. This is a regular occurrence where they think they've done, quote, the right thing, right? They think they've set themselves up only to come in and for me to point out, oh, you did this, and here's a result that nobody told you is going to happen. Here's a consequence that you hadn't been educated about because you just got the base level information. And so
Yeah.
a lot of what we're doing then is kind of cleaning up. If we're fortunate enough, we can catch it ahead of time and stave off any of those things that could have happened that we didn't want, but we thought we were doing the best we can. One example I'll give you, I just met with a client who was taking care of her elderly mom. Mom went into the bank with her, wanted to just put solo kid, right? Nobody else wants this daughter to be, on all of her accounts so that when she passes, daughter owns everything. We don't have a probate. We don't have an administrator. It's very simple. And lots of people think that's the way to go. And the bank said, okay, great. And took care of some paperwork to make her power of attorney. Well, what she didn't understand was power of attorney simply gave her the ability to manage those accounts. It neither made her an owner nor a beneficiary. So now she's come to me, and I have the unfortunate news to tell her that we've got to go through a probate because these assets actually don't have anybody named on them as a co-owner or beneficiary. That's our only way out. And it's going to cost her tens of thousands of dollars because she listened to someone at the bank who seemed like they knew what they were doing, right? But they're not an estate planner. They can't give legal advice. They just hear, I like to
Mm.
do this. They say, oh, okay, this is what I think you need. Here we go. Right. So it's things like that where you may be getting what you think is good information, but if you're not going to the source and having that deep conversation with an advisor who can say, let's go through all of the details of what you're trying to accomplish, where we're starting and where we're going, and let's talk about all the paths, the pitfalls, and the benefits, and then let's make a plan that works for you. So it really is about you don't know what you don't know, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes we learn too late. That's really unfortunate in the business, right? If
Yeah.
we have a business owner that has died suddenly, or even over a protracted time where we thought, okay, we're going to get some things in place and they just didn't happen. Now we may have a business with nobody at the helm. If it's a small or solo type firm, they definitely are going to be in the lurch again because they don't have someone with a license to come in and clear things up. So you may be in a court situation for managing your business or unwinding it, even if you have your family trust put together properly to avoid that, because we didn't look at the overlap and we didn't make a plan that was going to support the exiting of the business. And then on the plus side, there is also exiting the business because you want to, right? You want to sell
Right.
it, you want to move on, you want to retire. These are also things that need to be planned out, especially if you have a small partnership, right? How am I going to ask you as my partner to buy me out when we know there's maybe not the financial liquidity to do that? How do we figure out how that's going to occur over time? What do
Mm.
we have in our long-term vision and plan that's going to support that for one or both of us? So again, beginning with the end in mind and then getting all of the aspects from the advisors that you can. There is a cost to that, right? There's cost to getting that help. And it's a lot of people get hung up on the time or the, the paperwork and what is the value of these documents being prepared. But that's really not what you're paying for. What you're paying for are solutions to your specific issues, right?
Right.
And for someone to really dive in and guide you. And that's an investment long term in your business and your family. And that's where I encourage people, you need to, as an entrepreneur, you need to plan for that and make sure that you're making that investment. That's going to guarantee success for you, and then ultimately support for the ones that are left behind, your family, your loved ones, whomever you're trying to impact if you suddenly are gone.
There you go. You said it. How do people reach you?
So they can reach me via our website, which is allums.law. That's ALLUMS.LAW. They can reach me directly by email, Rachel@allums.law. That's RACHEL. And they can find all of our contact information there. We're happy to talk to anybody. Now, I am a California licensed attorney. So if they're outside of California, they definitely will need someone in their state. I do have a pretty good network around the country through several programs that I belong to. So if you are not sure where to start and you're having trouble finding someone in your area, feel free to still shoot me an email. If I have a contact or connection that I can make for you, I'm absolutely happy to do that.
That works beautifully. Rachel, thank you so much for being here. You guys, if you guys are out there and you're waiting to get your estate planning done, don't wait. Start.
Absolutely.
Do it. Get it done. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment. For all of your social media, podcasting, video needs, we got you. Keep watching. We'll see y'all next time.